now that I have presented PixiPack, let's talk about another project that I've been working on, namely setup-pixi. It's basically the go-to way to set up Pixi on GitHub runners. First a quick overview. What does setup-pixi actually do? So it obviously installs Pixi. It then can also authenticate with Pixi to anaconda.org, for example, or to Quets, or to Artifactory, or to prefix-dev, for example. So basically to all of the conda channels that you have available, you can authenticate with some custom parameters that we can see here. It also supports automatic caching for your environments, and we already tested it out quite extensively on self-hosted runners, and it works well there as well. Okay, so first let's quickly take a look at how the action output looks like. So we can see here that it's separated into different collapsible sections depending on what's currently happening. So we see at the beginning it's downloading Pixi, then it's trying to restore the cache, then it's running actually the Pixi install part, and at the end you can see that it's also running Pixi list, which I personally find quite useful because then I can see directly the package versions that I have installed. Caching of the .pixi directory is also active by default, and the cache key that's being used with GitHub Actions caches is based on a couple of factors, the most important ones being the pixi.log file. So as soon as your log file changes, your cache is automatically invalidated, and setup-pixi will create a new cache. Another thing that I think is great, a great default in setup-pixi is that Pixi install runs by default with -- logged. So if you accidentally not update your log file, setup-pixi will automatically fail and tell you, your log file is not up to date with your project. Please update your log file in order to ensure maximal reproducibility. Another thing that you might not know about in GitHub Actions are custom shells. So you can theoretically specify anything in these shell parameters. And what GitHub does is it basically creates a temporary file with the contents that you specify. So for example here with python --version and pip install in this file. And then it basically runs the shell with the file as the parameter where you see the 0 in the brackets. And basically nothing is preventing us from just putting pixi run bash in the shell part, for example, which then will execute everything that you specified in the Pixi environment. And you might have also heard about pixi exec in the latest release notes. It's a new feature that allows you to run one-off commands in temporary Pixi environments. So this can also actually be put in the shell parameter, for example, in your GitHub workflow. For example, if you want to run some very simple Python script that requires the PyYAML dependency, for example, but you don't want the extra overhead of creating an environment and installing PyYAML in there, you can basically just specify the dependencies in the shell parameter using pixi exec, as you can see here. And the last feature of setup-pixi that I want to talk about today is the activate environment flag. So if you maybe find it a bit too tedious to specify a custom shell in every command that you run and don't want to prefix everything with pixi run, you can also just specify activate environment to be true here in the setup-pixi action. And what this then does internally is it checks the environment variables that would be set on pixi shell and forwards them to the subsequent steps of your workflow.